I call this block the Amazing Star. I don't know what the correct name is for it, but I think it's amazing, so I'm calling it an Amazing Star. And in this video, I'm going to show you just a few of the different things you can do with this simple star. It's finished at 12 inches, and here is the diagram. We're going to use tri-rec units, or AccuQuilt calls them triangle and square. So I will use those terms interchangeably. We have the tri-rec unit and squares. That's all what's in this block. This is a 3x3 grid because there's 3 across and 3 down. This is a 12-inch block, so that means that each unit in this block finishes at 4 inches. Down here I have the grid, and I have the different finished unit sizes for different blocks. If you wanted a 6-inch block, then each unit would finish at 2 inches. So instead of having a 4-inch finished square, you'll have a 2-inch finished square. A 9-inch block, you make your units 3-inch finished. 12-inch block, we're making them 4-inch finished. And a 15-inch block, you're making them 5-inch finished. Here are the patches. We only have 3 different patches. Patch A is the 4-inch finished square. We'll cut 4.5-inch squares. We'll need 4 patches for the background and 1 patch for the center. Patch B is the triangle part of the tri-rec unit, or the center part of the triangle and square. We'll need 4 patches. Here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use. For using the tri-rec ruler, you cut 1 strip at 4.5 by 13 inches. And to cut these 4 patches, and you're going to use your tri-ruler to cut the 4 patches. You're going to have a similar size to cut for the AccuQuilt. It's going to be slightly larger, so just measure your die and see how many you need. For C and CR, that's C and C reversed, is the rec part, or the rectangle part of the unit, or what AccuQuilt calls the side unit. We'll need 4 sets of these patches. For the tri-rec rulers, we're going to cut 2 at 4.5 by 7 inches. We're going to stack the fabrics wrong sides together, and then we're going to use the rec ruler to cut 4 sets. You have to stack your fabrics wrong sides together or right sides together, whichever way. Do one or the other. Either using the tri-rec ruler or using the AccuQuilt, because we need to have mirror images. In the next segment, I'll show you first how to use the tri-rec ruler to cut them and to piece those units. And just after that will be a segment on using the AccuQuilt dies to cut and piece those. So if you don't need those, you can jump ahead to the next portion of the video. So to make this block, we're just going to make the 4 triangle and square units and then put the block together. Here are some things down here. I wanted to show you how this block can be changed up. These are just a few of many things you can do. Here we've taken the same block and we've replaced the corner units, the squares, with 4 patches. Here we've done the same thing, but we've replaced the center with 4 patches as well. Here we've replaced the 4 corners with half square triangles. And here we've replaced the center and the corners to get this kind of almost 3D effect. And then you can look at the other parts that show you how things can change. And an interesting part of this is to look at how the tri-rec unit in this one, this is as close as I can zoom in, but you can see how the tri-rec unit here makes, and then coupled with this half square triangle in the center, it gives a curve effect. So it looks like it's curving on these blocks, and I'll show you some more of that in a minute. And here's just a different one. It looks totally different in this block. At the bottom here, I have 3 videos shown that use this Amazing Star block, and each one of these gives the illusion of curves. The first one is the Scrap Garden, and you can scan this code, or there's a link in the description. The second is Making Waves, also in the description, or you can scan. And the third one is Star Rings. So you can see already how much you can do with just this simple block, just changing it up a little bit. Now let's look at the fabrics I have chosen. I'm going to use the Tri-Rec tool to cut my pieces. And as a matter of fact, I've already cut these. This is patch A, the corner units, and then the center unit. These are the triangle parts of the triangle and square, and I will cut the rectangle parts out of this piece. I have my wrong sides together, and then I'll cut these and then piece the triangle and square units. If you want to know how to piece them using the Tri-Rec ruler or with the AccuQuilt, then stay tuned for the next 2 segments. Otherwise, you can jump ahead after those. I'm using the Tri-Rec tool to do the triangles and square, or the Tri-Rec units. We want a 3-inch finished Tri-Rec unit. So we cut our strips 3.5 inches for the triangles and the rectangles. And we're going to use the 3.5 inch mark on the ruler. Now I need to have 8 of these units, so I need 8 triangles. That's the first one, and I find it easier to turn the fabric this way. Now I have my 8 triangles. Next we're going to cut the rectangle part of the triangle and square. And I have 2 pieces of fabric here, wrong sides together, and we're going to be cutting 1 set at a time every time we make this cut. The first one I've already done. You lay it down here on the 3.5 inch mark, and then you cut it. On the edge of this, there's this little bitty nub right here you need to cut off. It looks insignificant, but it really helps you in the placement of your pieces. So cut that off. And now we have our first set, and this gets you your pieces like this. And then your triangle is sewn this way. On this one I'm going to turn this way as well. So I have my first set cut. Now I need 7 more sets. To piece the Tri-Rec unit, you turn the piece over like this, and that little notch you cut out, you're going to line up with this edge of the triangle. So you have your notch lining up that edge, and then you have your side lining up with this edge. And we're going to start our stitching here and stitch 1/4 inch all the way down. When you stitch it, your stitching should start right at this point here, and this should be 1/4 inch here. So we've stitched all the way down to the bottom. And then when we open it up and press the seam open, it will look like this. This nub up here you have to cut off because it just gets in the way. And down here, if you'll notice down here, there's also a nub here that you can cut off. And this little angle for the rectangle fabric is sort of cut off a little bit. And that's just fine. It'll work out just fine. Now we take our other side, which is this, and we do basically the same thing. We're going to match down here, match where you cut off the little blunt edge right here along this line, and then match the long side here. And we'll start stitching here. If you can see where this V is, right at that point should be your 1/4 inch, and you start there and stitch 1/4 inch all the way down, and you should come off right here at this where this blunt edge was cut off. Here are 2 of them finished. This is what it looks like before the nubs are cut off. So you have a nub down here, and then the last one up here. So you trim those off, and here's what it looks like trimmed off. These little curved here, sort of curved edges here, are just fine. It doesn't matter. It'll be taken up in the seam allowance. It's just how it comes out. And then those are finished. So go ahead and make all 8 of those. This demo, I'm going to show you how to cut and piece the triangle and square unit using the AccuQuilt. Here are the pieces you use. I'm using a die. There's one die for the triangle and one die for the rectangle parts. AccuQuilt calls this unit a triangle and square. This is the triangle and these are the sides that make it the square. And you have two pieces. You have mirror images for your sides and your triangle is just a triangle. These dies are from the cube. These finish at 3.5 inches. But there's a set for every cube, and there are also sets you can buy that have all these dies on one strip. And I think they finish at either 3 inches or 4 inches. There's a link in the description of the video to show you all your dies you can make the triangle and square with AccuQuilt. My dies, I always outline my blades. I add 1/4 inch to each side and then I measure it. So here I've measured and it's 4 inches. So this tells me I need to cut my fabric at 4 inches, and if I only want one, I'll have a 4-inch square that I put on here. If I want to cut multiple ones, I'll cut a 4-inch strip. I've also figured out how many pieces I get per strip. And this one, I can get 17 of these shapes per strip. And I wrote that on there. And I did the same thing to the side parts. These will cut 2 at a time, but they're not mirror images of each other. And we'll get into that in just a second. And here I've measured again. This is 3 1/4 and this is 4 inches. And I get 10 of these. That means 10 of this per shape, which means 2 per cut. So to cut this, the rectangle part, we need to have mirror images. If I put these on here, this is wrong side up. I had to flip it to get that shape. And this is right side up. So what you'll have to do is take your fabric, fold it either wrong sides together or right sides together. I just have these wrong sides together. And then put your fabric over the 2 dies. And this will give you 2 sets. It will give you 2 left sides and 2 right sides. And they'll be the same. So that's what you have to do with these. The triangle, it doesn't matter how you put it on the die because it's symmetrical and it won't matter left or right. Here's one that I've cut. And it's like this, and it came out of this. So I wanted to show you how I cut these. I'll lay this on here first, and I'll cut one, then take this off. And usually I cut this part off here because I don't want it to get in the way. Now I have my angle here, so I can flip it this way. And then you get better use of your fabric. So make your cut here, and then cut off these little pieces, and then flip it, and just continue cutting as many as you need. So for one unit, you need 1 triangle and 1 pair of mirror image sides. Now let's see how we're going to piece these together. If I'm piecing a lot of these units, I will chain piece one side first. So say if I'm doing 8, 10, whatever, I'll do all of this side first, press them, and then add the last side next. The dies have cut off all the points here. This gives you a way to match up for your piecing. So we'll take this first one and flip it over. I'm matching this cut here and this edge. I usually start with this one because it matches better. This is at the tip of the triangle. So let's match this here and then match however it ends up here. Then I'll start stitching at 1/4 inch and then finish stitching 1/4 inch down here. Now I wanted to zoom way in so you can see. This is the bottom part, the part that I matched first, and you can see the stitching comes out almost right on that point. And up here, it doesn't really match any point here, so just be sure you have 1/4 inch when you start stitching. Now I'll press it open. This is pressed open. This is the bottom part of the triangle, and you see this white part, or the side part, comes out just a little bit, but that's okay. And then the top part comes out, they meet together at the edge. And that's what you want. Now we're going to flip this over. This is how the piece goes. So we'll flip this over. Now you're going to match the top part of the triangle with this part right here. So match that there. Match the straight edge here and the edges here. Stitch up here, start here with your 1/4 inch. Going back one step, each time you match your side pieces to your triangle, do the matching at the tip of the triangle. Before we had the tip facing this way and we started our matching down here. Now we have our tip facing this way and we started our matching up here. And here's what it looks like. This is even across the top here, and that point is right at your 1/4 inch. And then down here, you're off a little bit with your 1/4 inch, but that's okay because we did the same thing over here. So now we will press the seams open. And here is your finished triangle and square unit. You see from the tip of this point to the edge is about a 1/4 inch. And it's straight across the edge, nothing to cut off here. And then down here, you'll see these little bitty pieces kind of come out a little bit. I would trim those off because they might get in the way when you're stitching. There's a little bit peeking over here too. And you'll see that this white part or the side part comes out. It looks like maybe 1/8 inch comes out on the side. But don't worry about that. It will be taken up in the seam allowance when you sew this unit to another piece. And that's how you stitch the triangle and square with the AccuQuilt. Now all of our tri-rec units, our triangle and square units are done. So we'll just put the block together. Here's the center, the corners, and then the tri-rec units for the star. Now we'll just put the block together. We'll sew the units together into 3 rows and sew the rows together. And after I show you the completed block, I have some video segments of the 3 quilts, and they all have free patterns or you can download from the video. And it shows you using this block in different ways. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you the block and then I'll show you the videos. And now here are 3 clips from previous videos with downloadable instructions. The pictures of the scrap garden quilt.